From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
Thanks for listening to the Wildcast podcast. I'm Justin Spears, here with Michael Lev, who is just wrapping up a bowl of tortilla soup from Costco. Chicken tortilla soup, huh, Lev?
Can we get Costco as a sponsor
it's good
for our podcast?
That'd be great.
That would be totally
I would love
awesome.
to have Costco as a
we
sponsor.
could maybe we could do the show from like the cafeteria over at Costco. Have some pepperoni pizza and
hot dogs.
The best deal ever, like the hot dog and drink for like $1.50. I mean, who does that these days?
I know.
Costco and Augusta National are the only ones who are keeping their concession prices down.
Atlanta Falcons too. I don't know if you've seen this, but Atlanta Falcons, they're like keeping like
nice.
nachos at like $3, $4, hamburgers at $3.
But no Chick-fil-A on Sundays though,
Nope.
right? Okay,
Nope.
that's an issue.
Only for soccer games on Saturdays.
Maybe they could come out with a new sauce. Bijan could have a new sauce with Chick-fil-A.
At Chick-fil-A?
A Bijan
That'd be-
Dijon
that'd
type
be
of
great.
sauce. Yeah.
All right, we got plenty to talk about, Lev. And we're also going to get into the mailbag. A lot of questions submitted on X. We appreciate you guys for always doing that.
Are we really calling it X now? Or are we
It's
gonna
proper.
continue to resist?
I mean, we could, call it the social media app formerly known as Twitter. Go the whole Prince route.
I like that better.
And X is the logo, the symbol. But a lot of you guys submitted questions, and a lot of them are somewhat the same. So we'll kind of lump a few.
A lot of the
together.
ones. Yeah, I'm not sure how many of the ones I got last week are relevant anymore after what we saw Saturday. But we'll comb through them and see what we can come up with.
So what we did see on Saturday, Lev,
Oh boy!
is
Wow.
a 44-6 win for Arizona. Dominant victory for the Wildcats. That is actually the largest margin of victory for Arizona on the road against a ranked opponent in program history, according to Arizona Athletics. It's also, I believe, the largest margin of victory for the Wildcats since they won by 38 points against UCLA in Pac-12 play, or against a ranked opponent, I think it is, since UCLA in 2005. So, in other words, it was a very historic, dominant performance by Arizona. And, we'll get to the quarterbacks in just a little bit, because I feel like too many people are shedding the light on the quarterback situation, Lev. But I feel like this was all about the defense, really, this game. I know that Noah Fafita played great, really did a great job distributing the ball. The running backs had a fantastic game, and we'll get into those guys in just a little bit. But the defense, I thought, after that first drive against Washington State, showed that it is, no joke, very much improved and one of the top units in the Pac-12. Last year, these guys could not stop a nosebleed, just like stopping the run. They gave up multiple 300-yard rushing games. They gave up, I think, an average of 209 yards per game last season. That's 8th worst in college football.
Think about
only
that
giving up
Cal.
96.
Think about that Cal game.
354.
How awful they were that day. I mean, they absolutely could. They were just out of position. There were just huge swaths of open field for Jaden Ott to run through. And now they're what under 100 yards a game?
96. That is the third best in the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's crazy to see.
It's
that,
really
that
wild.
transformation.
Credit to Johnny Nansen, the defensive coordinator, who I think has disproved the many doubters that he had. Credit to the personnel department in conjunction with Johnny for bringing in some dudes to play in the interior. The Tyler Manoa, Bill Norton, Taylor Upshaw types of guys. They have made a huge impact. Justin Flo, I think, he hasn't been like a full-time player. Like, he doesn't play as much as Manu, but I think he's been really effective when he's been in there. He's like a really good role player. Like, maybe better than I thought, honestly. Like, he's been a pretty sure tackler. He's very physical and explosive. I wonder, too, like, how much of an influence do you think Dwayne Aquina has had on this whole thing? I mean, this is a very accomplished defensive coach that's a change, too, from a year ago. New voice in the room.
Is he like the Yoda?
It may be. He might be.
He's the Yoda of Arizona's defense.
He might be, and they implemented a flex look.
Yeah.
with Jeremy Mercer serving as a spy. We thought Justin Flo would be a good candidate to spy a quarterback, but apparently Jeremy Mercer is that guy. They found a role for him too. As I pointed out on your on the radio show on Monday morning, they being the Cougars had 35 net rushing yards, but 22 of those came on the last drive. So that means before that last garbage time drive, they had 13 net rushing yards, which is just crazy. And I don't know. I felt like
it was like minus point something yards per carry
before
that last
drive.
It
was less than a yard. So I felt like Washington State just had no answers. You know, like they're gonna try to run the ball. They're gonna kind of do short passing, bubble screens, and it worked on the first drive. And then Arizona was like, no, we're not going to allow this anymore. We're going to creep up. We're going to shut that off. And they had no counter for it whatsoever.
And again, I think it's a big credit to Johnny Nansen for putting together the right game plan and also having a collaborative effort. That's the one thing that I've gathered from the defensive staff is Johnny Nansen's the defensive coordinator and he's the guy who oversees everyone. But everyone has a say in what the Wildcats are doing defensively. And I think Dwayne Aquina, like you said, coming in and being a guy who has defensive coordinator experience and has been there and has done that, bringing in a different style of defense. They're like, hey, they're expecting the dollar package. They're expecting our base defense. Let's throw something at them that's a curveball, and they're not going to know what hit them. And that flex defense, like you said, it was inspired by Canadian Football League. I think Dwayne Aquina got it from when he was coaching in the CFL, and then he brought it to Tucson for the Desert Swarm era. And that's how Arizona became Desert Swarm, was with that flex defense. And so it was useful against Washington State. But Lev, like you said, that after that first drive, what are we talking about? Multiple punts. We're also talking about drives resulting in interceptions and fumbles. 3 takeaways for the Wildcats. And Washington State only finished on Arizona's side of the field twice after that first drive.
Yeah, I think you listed in your aftermath, or maybe it was the game story, one of the two, like the results of all those drives. But I'll go through it here in case people have forgotten. Downs, interception, punt, interception, fumble, downs, punt, downs. The most yards they had on any of those drives, again, the last one, the least meaningful one, was 44 yards. Other than that, 29 yards was the most, and that drive ended in a forced fumble by Bill Norton that Justin Flo recovered. So just incredible. Yeah. And the time of possession, too, is
Arizona's plus 17,
something
right?
We didn't talk about. We talked about during the game, but it was 38 minutes and 39 seconds to 21-21. So you've already got a deeper defense that's fresh all the time, and they don't have to be out there that much because the offense is keeping the ball and they're getting the Washington State offense off the field. Great formula for success.
There's always guys who make plays who don't maybe get a lot of credit in the grand scheme of things. I think it's worth noting on the defensive line, I thought Jacob Kongaika really had a very strong presence, especially in that first half, getting a sack
and a fourth down stop.
Stop.
Heck, that was a tone-setting play.
Yeah.
I mentioned this in my 5 takeaways that there aren't a lot of stars on the defense. It's like a different guy steps up every single week. One week it's Taylor Upshaw, one week it's Jacob Kongaika, one week it's Russell Davis, Martell Irby, Isaiah Ward, just so many guys. Jacob Manu he's definitely the ringleader, right? The guy who'd be the hardest to replace. I think if they knew he was going to be out, I bet you they would get Flo or Daniel Hamuli ready so they would both play in that situation. So, I mean, he's the closest thing they have to a star. Do you think he's going to get Pac-12, all Pac-12, first or second team this year? I don't think so. I doubt it. No, I doubt it.
Well, I mean, if right now he's one of the top tacklers in the conference. I think you have to look at that with some serious consideration.
I don't know. I'm just sort of conditioned that Arizona's just not going to get respect in that regard.
Yeah, but then again,
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I just think that other like Washington, Oregon State, Utah, those teams are going to dominate those lists.
And tackles don't always reflect getting the recognition, because I remember a few years back when Blake Martinez was, wreaking havoc with the Green Bay Packers. He was, I think, second in the NFL in tackles and didn't get a Pro Bowl selection. So sometimes the numbers don't necessarily warrant you getting those kind of nods.
But Manu has 17 quarterback pressures.
Yeah.
According to PFF, which is tied for the most on the team, and he has 26 defensive stops, which is the most on the team by 10 over Dalton Johnson. And he's the leading tackler, and he plays the most downs of anyone in the front group. So, yeah. But other than that, it's a different guy every week, and that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's really it's proof that sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, that they've really implemented a team concept on that side of the ball.
With that being said, Lev, a lot of people are talking now about what's going on the other side of the ball, and that's regarding the quarterbacks. I didn't see this when we watched it live because we actually watched the game together on Pac-12 Networks.
Yep.
And I didn't see it live, but then I watched the video afterwards of that final play of the game.
I didn't notice it.
When Jayden de Laura was in there and took a snap to kneel down, victory formation against his former team in Pullman, the team that he quarterbacked for 2 seasons and was the Pac-12 Offensive Freshman of the Year. So that I know that was a big moment for Jayden, but I'm sure Jayden would have much rather been QB1 and leading the Wildcats to victory and doing that knee. But instead, he sat behind Noah Fafita. He dressed out. We saw him on the sidelines, but he was wearing his shoulder pads and full game uniform, wearing the baseball cap and the headset. And Noah Fafita went out there and put up over 300 yards passing, 79% completion percentage. And when Jayden took that knee and turned around and gave Noah Fafita a big old hug on the field, to me, Lev, it felt like that was the passing of the torch. And if I'm like Jayden de Laura, or if I'm like a fly going on and flying around that conversation, I would almost imagine maybe Jayden de Laura mentioned something that like, hey, maybe this is your team now. Because if I'm Jayden, I would have to understand that Noah's playing out of his mind right now. And it has nothing to do with Jayden de Laura per se, because I think any college football team would love to have Jayden de Laura on their team. Now, with that being said, Noah Fafita, the offense just is flowing better with him. The last time we saw Jayden de Laura take the field, they went up against arguably the worst team in the Pac-12 in Stanford, and the offense just had no rhythm. He's also turned over the ball quite a bit. We haven't seen that with Noah Fafita at all. And Noah Fafita's done this against 3 ranked teams. So
plus coming in against Stanford when they were losing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And leading them on a go ahead drive. I mentioned this on X/Twitter. Yards passing for Noah in his 3 starts: 232, 303, 342. Completion percentage: 69.2, 71.4, 79.1. He is trending up. He's getting better every single week. Yeah. Didn't have a touchdown pass this last week. I think that was circumstantial. They were running the ball so well, and yeah, exactly. They got them there, and I just thought his decision making was really on point. Like a couple times he threw the ball away, and it was exactly what he was supposed to do in those situations. Yogi Roth illustrated a couple times where he went from 1 to 2 to 3 and ended up throwing a check down, and where they were able to get positive yards on the check down. There was one time he took a sack, and I think it was okay in that particular situation. There was one time he threw the ball away when they were at the 4-yard line, I think, and needed 3 yards for a first down. It was 3rd down, threw the ball away. They got a field goal. That was his first drive of the second half, and they went up 3 scores in that situation. Rather than try to do something crazy, maybe you fumble, maybe you throw the ball away. I think what we were talking about before at the beginning about how good the team is around him, all they need is someone who can execute the offense and distribute the ball and get it to the playmakers and have an offense that complements a pretty good defense. Look at USC against Notre Dame this past week. I think they had 5 turnovers. They gave up a kickoff return touchdown. I think Notre Dame had less than 300 yards of offense in that game, and they won by like 28 points.
Yeah.
Don't hurt yourself, right? You got a really good chance to win. And Noah's smart. He's efficient. He seems really well prepared. Obviously, he's got some limitations because he's on the smaller side. But he's always been that size. So he, like that one play where he ducked underneath the one rusher, and then the other guy was about to hit him, and he sidearmed the ball.
The arm angle, man.
Sidearmed the ball to T-Mac, threw it high like on purpose because he knew T-Mac would go up and get it. That was like, I've said this many times, like if Noah Fifita was not a shortstop at some point in time in his life, I'd be very surprised because he's got those kind of things. He can really get rid of it quick. He can throw sidearm or different arm angles. It's just really impressive. I just don't see how you can bench him at this point. I mean, if he goes out against Oregon State and throws 4 picks or something, then maybe you revisit it. But it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I'm curious to see is, once Noah is officially QB1, how is it going to be moving forward? But see, the thing is Noah's worked hard to get to this point. And the one thing about him is that that I've gathered in our time covering him is that he's a professional every single day. He's very consistent, just a very routine guy. And you don't have to worry about, I guess, emotions necessarily getting the best of him. He is a very even-keeled person. And I just think that the offense is better with Noah Fifita. Like you said, Lev, I know it's a whole team concept, but with Jayden de Laura, if Jayden de Laura started on Saturday, would they have put up 44 points, do you think? I mean, I don't know. It's a hypothetical situation.
Yeah,
but
they
still,
might have.
I don't know.
I
don't know. Because I think about the emotions that go into that game.
Yeah.
And would Jayden de Laura have turned over the ball like he did last year against Washington State?
Yeah, and if he did, that obviously changes the game.
Yeah.
But when was the last? We'd have to look this up. We don't have time to do it on this podcast. But when was the last time Arizona was +3 in the turnover margin? It's probably been a minute. Mm-hmm. That really makes a difference.
It does.
Field position.
Yeah.
In this game was, I believe, they were +17 in average starting field position.
Yeah.
Which again is that has just not been Arizona.
Yeah. Lately
because they haven't gotten enough takeaways. Mm-hmm. And special teams were on .2 in this game. I think let me look here. It was their average starting point was their own 39-yard line, and Washington State's was their 22. So +17. That's
a lot of touchbacks.
A lot of touchbacks. A lot of takeaways.
Yeah.
A lot of fourth down stops. All that stuff. We talked about what is the difference between winning and losing these close games. And it's stuff like it's winning the turnover battle. It's penalties. They didn't have that many penalties. I think the same.
And finally getting interceptions.
Interceptions.
Easy surprise sock to Cario Bobo Davis.
They were due. They were so
due.
They
needed some picks. But, yeah, Lev, I think that now moving forward, if I'm at Jetfish going into a bye week, you got to start Noah Fifita moving forward. I don't even think it should be a conversation. And, I'm reading between the lines here because we actually, you asked Jed after the game, does this change the hierarchy? And, of course, we're recording this before Jed's presser on Monday, so a lot can change then. And I'm sure, maybe some of this stuff might be useless by the time you listen to this podcast. But,
But don't stop listening.
But I think that, when Jed said, I just want to talk about the game today, what I gathered was eventually I'm going to have the formal conversation with Jayden de Laura. And I'm going to politely tell him that, hey, this is the plan we got moving forward. I'm sorry, this is how it worked out. It had nothing to do with what you did.
Yeah, exactly. It's not your fault.
You just got hurt, and Noah's good.
Give him the Goodwill Hunting.
It's not your
fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah. So yeah, Jed's going to be Robin Williams in this case.
Exactly.
Right? Telling him it's not your fault. So, and Jayden, let's say, he doesn't go back in another game this year. Can he redshirt?
Now he can't
No,
because of that knee. That was his 5th game. He got hurt in the 4th game. So by going in and taking that knee, that was his 5th appearance of the season.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, man.
I don't know if that was part of the calculus or whatnot, or if they just talked about it before the game. Hey, we're going to put you in if we're in that situation.
So now he's got 1 year of eligibility now?
Yep.
Because of one knee?
Yep.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? Yeah.
All right, let's get to the mailbag. We
Yeah.
still got plenty to talk about regarding quarterbacks and defense.
I got all kinds of questions here.
Start us off.
All right, so this one's from Cat Bus AZ. What is the latest on freshman and projected starter Raymond Polito? Will he play again this season, or is the staff going to advise him to go the redshirt route? I think it depends on the status of his lower leg. It was initially referred to, I think his dad posted something on social media that it was an ankle injury. I don't know if it's anything more than that. Obviously pretty severe, because Jed was talking about, Jaden was going to dress, and we'd like to get Michael Wiley 10 to 15 plays, and Raymond's out.
It was like the three of them were staggered.
Yeah, right. So I listed, I think I listed one at questionable, doubtful, and out.
Yeah.
So clearly he's on a different track than those other guys. The next 2 weeks are going to be pretty telling. Speaking of the red shirt rule, they could still play him in 3 more games and preserve a red shirt. So to me, if he's ready to play and you feel like he's a better option, play him for 3 games, or maybe 2 if in case they make a bowl, and you can play him in the bowl game as well. And preserve that red shirt. Keep it under 4, but also get him some action out there is the way I would go on that one.
This one comes from Winston Dan. Because this is in response to the mid-season awards we did on Saturday. Who are the scout team standouts who contribute to the team? Also academic and volunteers who also do great things off the field. Well, I think academics, you got to start with the future president of the United States, Kyle Ostendorf. He's probably going to work for NASA. I know he wants to, was it something engineer? Hydrodynamic engineer. I don't even know what exactly.
This is all above my pay grade.
But he is a very smart man with a very complicated major. That's going to make him a lot of money when he decides to step away from football. He is interested in possibly working in F1, Formula One racing, but he's like NASA. That's going to be in his future. He's going to be probably running for office here very soon. Kyle Ostendorf, the punter, has like a 4.65 GPA, which I didn't know was possible.
Not possible for you.
No, definitely not me. Hell no, not for me. And to do that while also playing football, I think goes to show the level of commitment this guy has to his life.
Yeah,
so.
the question about the scout team guys is a very good one. I think it's a good question to ask Jed in one of these upcoming pressers. I don't have specific names, but you can kind of use the process of elimination and look at guys who haven't suited up or haven't been part of the 2 deep to kind of figure out who's been on the scout team. And doing that work, but we'll ask Jed and that's a really good question. I feel like so this someone named Cat Backer at Zona7378 sent me a bunch of questions. I'll pick out one here. What impact will Elijah Rushing's decommit rant about Arizona coaches not developing their players? How will that affect future recruiting? In my opinion, it will not affect it at all.
I'll be honest. If they have questions, the coaches are going to answer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wrote a big piece about this. You can check it out if you're a subscriber, Tucson.com. And I think what it all kind of boiled down to was several things, but one of them was just sort of the family and the coaches just not kind of seeing eye to eye about development plans and the way that those things are communicated. I have not heard a lot of other families or players complain about that specific thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to have much of an impact at all. This staff is relentless when it comes to recruiting. They're doing a really good job in that regard. It is a shame that things did not work out with the 2 South Point players. I mean, maybe there's a chance that they can get back in with Keona Wilhite. I don't know. But they're doing just fine, and I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. What do you think?
No. No, because like I said, if the recruits and their parents have questions like, okay, hey, what happened here? This guy is questioning your development skills for players. And Jed and Johnny can be like, well, no. Look at these guys going from year 1 to year 2, from 2022 to 2023. Look at the jump that Jacob Kongaika has made. Look at the jump that Russell Deuce Davis. I mean, Deuce kind of got off to a slow start, maybe a slower start than we all thought, but he's made an impact over the last few games for Arizona's defensive line. So, Jacob Manu, right? Like the list goes on and on for the number.
Both starting cornerbacks are sophomores.
Exactly.
Wendell Moe, starting guard, is a sophomore.
Jonas Avenaya.
Jonas Avenaya is a sophomore. Tetero McMillan's a sophomore. Jonah Coleman's a sophomore. Noah Fifita is a redshirt freshman. Telling me that they don't develop those guys? I mean, those guys are all ready to play in their second years. And they're good.
They're kicking ass.
Yeah.
So
I got one more from this one is from another one from Cat Bus AZ. Jedfish has found legitimate NFL caliber linemen and skill position players. What is the timeline, or what will it take for Arizona to attract and land NFL potential at the QB spot? That is an interesting one because, look, I think we're all fans of Noah Fifita. He is not an NFL type of prospect because of his size. Okay? I don't think Jaden Delora is either.
Ideally, he's not the...
No, he's not the prototype. Okay? I don't think DeMond Williams is either. I've heard DeMond is about the same dimensions as Noah, maybe a little bit more athletic. He's the guy's coming in next year. When you look at just the physical prototype, maybe Braden Dorman fits that mold. But I don't know. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think... But, quarterbacks are getting smaller in the NFL now, too. Like, how tall is Tua?
Yeah, maybe like 6 feet. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, Noah's obviously a little bit shorter than Tua, but, I mean, look at Tua. I mean, he's hovering around the 6 foot range, and he's balling out right now. I would say he's in position to possibly win MVP this season. You look at Kyler Murray pre-injury, right? He was doing okay for himself as an NFL quarterback. Could be a little bit better, but still, like, he's undersized. He could still figure it out in the NFL. So, and Noah still has many years left to grow into a potentially NFL quarterback. But like you said, Lev, like, you look at his stature and how he's built, he's not an ideal NFL quarterback. But with that being said, I think after this cycle of quarterbacks with Noah and DeMond Williams, and the proof is there that when you come to Arizona, you get better as a quarterback, then you're going to start turning heads with probably some pretty good gunslingers out of Southern California that would go to other really good schools, but they would rather get developed by Jedfish. So
I think when you play for Jedfish, you're going to be really well prepared for the NFL because he is running a pro-style offense. And he mentioned that after in his post-game.
Yeah.
How, I mean, I've heard from a lot of people, like, it's complicated, It is not like a paint-by-numbers type of scheme. Like, I know they've gone to more shotgun than they did when he first got here. But in terms of the route concepts and what's asked of the quarterback, like, it's pretty complex.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to Noah Fifita's acumen and his level of preparation that he's been able to thrive so much in that offense.
And also, who knows? I mean, maybe Braden Dorman is really good, and he's the successor to Noah Fifita. And I think a lot of people, they see the 4-star quarterback, DeMond Williams, and they automatically assume that, in a year or two, he's going to be the guy. That's not always the case. Braden Dorman might be the guy. You never know. All right. We got one from, this is a good one, from Joseph52. Joseph's a regular on these mailbag questions. Says, you guys have mentioned that this defense has looked amazing with Nansen as the defensive head. Had Dr. Blitz had this talent, what would we have looked like today? That is a really good question. Now, does Dr. Blitz like the dollar package?
He had a lot of packages. They had a lot of packages. I feel like they had too many. Remember how many times they were like hurriedly running guys on and off the field, and they'd have to call timeouts or they get substitution fouls. I feel like Johnny's been very deliberate about adding packages. Like, they did not add the dollar until halfway through last season, And then this year, they did not add this flex look until halfway through the season. And he kind of keeps it simple.
Yeah.
The hard part about that question is they're so different.
Yeah.
Like Don Brown loves to blitz and play man-to-man coverage. And Johnny doesn't blitz that much. I mean, I can't remember them rushing more than 5 in any situation this year. And usually they rush 4.
Yeah.
And sometimes they rush only 3, and they play a lot of zone and just try to keep plays in front of them. So I don't know. I mean, I think Don Brown did really well in his 1 year here. If you actually look at the numbers, that offense was putrid for most of the season. They gave up a lot of field position, scores to the opposition through pick sixes and all kinds of other issues. He got a lot out of what they had, and they have a lot more now. Like, there's definitely more talent and more depth. That's maybe the biggest thing. Like we said, not a lot of stars, but like a lot of good players.
Yeah.
And that's been hugely impactful, I feel like, to just be able to keep rolling different guys in there in that front.
And also players who have struggled early on in the season have really been playing a little bit better. Like
Gunnar Maldonado.
Gunnar Maldonado. Well, one of our mailbag submissions is from Loudon Montoya. And Loudon says,
great name.
Not a question. Let's give Gunnar some goddamn flowers, man.
Yeah. So. I think Gunnar, to me, is like, he's like one of those players, almost like an offensive lineman or like an umpire. Like, if you don't notice him, then he's probably having a pretty good game. And I feel like I haven't noticed him that much the last couple of weeks because he hasn't been missing tackles or hasn't been trying to go for blow up hits or whatnot. Yeah, good point. So this one is from our good friend Brett Berry. This is the best Arizona offensive line since blank.
The Mike Stoops era.
This is a tough one. I mean, like, I've only been on the beat since end of the 2015 season. They had some pretty good offensive lines in the early part of my time when Rich Rod was here with Jacob Alsadek and Leif Freck and those guys. I think this is a more talented group for sure. I think
collectively,
at least 2 NFL players, maybe more.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is there one that you can remember that stands out?
Well, and that's the thing is like the Rich Rod era that you were talking about. They had Jacob Alsadek. I remember Freddie Tagovailoa, Freddie Tagaloa. Excuse me. He was on that O line. Man, who else was on that? Like Chris Putton, I think was one guy. They had all sorts of guys. Gerhard DeBeer, our guy, who could ever forget about him. But collectively, I think that this offensive line is the best group since you probably got to go back to the Mike Stoops era when they had Evan Britton, who was, I believe, the second-round pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2008. They also had Mike Diaz on that offensive line, Colin Baxter, who had a cup of coffee in the NFL. He was their starting center then. So, like, that group was very solid in, like, the height of the Mike Stoops era. But, man, I don't know. And the last first-round offensive lineman Arizona has had was John Fina in 1992. And Jordan Morgan could end that drought this year, and then Jonas Avenea, after next season, most likely, will definitely be the next one.
Make it 2 in a row.
Make it 2 in a row. It's crazy.
Let's get really wild, huh?
Yeah. So.
Okay, so Steve Molina is someone who messages us often, and he wants to know what UA fans should do about the bad fans cussing out recruits. Other fans reaching out to recruits is absolutely not the answer.
I agree.
To me, it's like when we asked about gambling. Remember, we asked the coaches and players about gambling, and basically they said, just don't do it. Okay? Like, hey, don't press send. If you're thinking about, like, harassing a recruit because he decided to change his mind and not go to Arizona, do not do that. Yeah. That's unacceptable behavior.
Especially as a grown adult.
I mean, come on. Yes, get a life, right?
Yeah.
Leave the kids alone. Like, a lot of these kids are in a really difficult position. There's a lot of pressure on them. There's a lot of voices, a lot of people trying to influence them. If you want to praise somebody or give them a, hey, welcome to Tucson or whatnot. When they commit here, that's fine. If they decide to go somewhere else, just let it be.
Yeah. Because I feel very bad for these kids because, they make a decision that they think is bettering their life. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot that goes into these decisions. And for whatever reason, Elijah Rushing and his family believe that not going to Arizona was the right call. Now, should they have handled things differently? Maybe they shouldn't have blown up or being the hometown hero and bucking the trend of being the 5-star all-world prospect and leaving Tucson and going elsewhere. That was a big deal in July. And Arizona fans really felt like, okay, maybe things are turning the corner. And then when you go, oh, wait, not so fast. Arizona fans, I guess, feel very insecure about their team and where they stand, that they can't keep a prospect like an Elijah Rushing. It's sad all around. I think that Elijah Rushing maybe should have handled things differently. Maybe he should have waited until right before the early signing period to make his decision. Maybe he should have worded his decommitment post a little bit differently. I truly believe that the Rushing family or the Rushing party could have handled it better, but it's the decision that they made that they believe is best for them and their family. And it really irks me when I see grown adults going after these kids or mocking them, making fun of them. Elijah Rushing, in South Point Catholic, they lost 49-0, and people are going after Elijah for losing that game. It's guys, just give it a rest. Just let him make that decision and let it be. So,
John Viator, who I asked him for a pronunciation of his last name. He said Veateor, so we'll go with Viator.
Viator, okay.
At what point during a bye week does Jedd Fisch have to make a decision on the starting QB to implement any tweaks/new plays on offense? This is a great question. I think they'll know. The quarterbacks will know. The team will know. We might not know for sure. He might not tell us because he has no incentive to do that really at this point, even though it might be kind of obvious. Make Oregon State spend 20% of their prep time thinking about Jaden DeLora. Mm-hmm. To me, I think
John Smith's not dumb.
He's not.
He knows he's Jedd's
well, maybe
like
I said, we're recording this before Jedd's presser, and maybe he will come out and just say it on Monday afternoon. That'll be his lone. By the way, that's his lone media availability this week. Today is the only podcast we're doing this week. We won't have a Thursday one because we don't have a game coming up. We will post our Pac-12 picks on Friday. They were not awesome this week. Tough week.
No.
That Colorado-Stanford game kind of turned on all of us. Can you imagine? It wasn't. You know what? It wasn't that bad. We were all 2-3-1 against the spread, which could have been worse. But I don't know. I don't. Whatever we say here, we'll find out shortly, what he's actually going to say. I don't know if he's just going to come out and say it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's beneficial to, but I'm certain that the team will know.
Yeah. And
they will prepare accordingly with that plan in place.
All right, that'll wrap up today's this week's Wildcast podcast. We're going to pin some of these questions moving forward. A lot of great mailbag submissions. We'll answer them on the next podcast. We appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you, as always, for submitting your mailbag questions on X. Per usual, don't forget to check out our work on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app, and check out the Wildcast podcast on Apple, Spotify, or other podcasting platforms.